Assalamu alaikum. Everyone struggles with two things in life: telling the truth and sticking by the truth. Day to day we come across people who will tell us lies and we may not know it, tell us the truth and we presume they're telling lies. But particularly as Shias, not only is it important to tell the truth, but also especially to live by the truth. Following haqq is something that we have to understand. Not just understand, but embrace and to implement into our own lives. Today, brothers and sisters, on the After Maghrib podcast, we've got a lot to talk about, some really interesting discussions. But before we go any further, I want you, firstly, if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, inshallah. But secondly, don't turn off. I know this sounds a bit cliche, truth and honesty and yada yada, but this is a very important conversation, arguably one of the most important topics in the religion of Islam. But before we go any further, time of course to introduce my charismatic co-host, Sayed Ali Radhawi. Assalamu alaikum, Sayed.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing? Why that cheeky smile?
Because I remember the few podcasts back earlier when we first started.
Yeah.
Every intro had like a specific word that I was like, how do I counter this for you? La Habib, it's good to be here. And how's your week been?
It's been good, alhamdulillah. It's been good. I mean, life nowadays is just cracking on. I know, of course, it's been a few weeks since Arba'in, but I think still trying to keep that momentum up and stay on top of things. So alhamdulillah. What about yourself?
I've had an interesting week, and sort of revolves around the conversation we're having here today, but I'm going to keep my personal life out.
Yeah.
But more importantly, Ahmed, do you tell the truth?
Do I tell the truth? I would hope so. It's a hard question to answer. I mean,
It is.
you know, we talked about the concept of part-time Muslims, and we always refer back to that. But everyone will try their best, and of course know that it's important to tell the truth. But say the topic of truth and truthfulness, it goes beyond just telling the truth, which I know, of course, we're going to get into today. And maybe just speaking the truth is one small element of it. But it's part of a much wider discussion on the concept of truth within Islam. Do you know what I mean?
No, you're very right, Ahmed. And it's not just Islam. And you mentioned us being Shia, and this being a Shia podcast, we have the best of examples, the Ahlul Bayt, and we see time throughout the entire lives, they stood only with haqq and fought with batil. And we have so much examples. And inshallah, in this conversation, I'm going to learn a lot, because we all struggle with the truth, to be honest. To be truthful, we all struggle with the truth.
One of our respected teachers and ulama, I was listening to like a session he had online. He said that in his many years of study in Islam, he said he feels one of, if not the most fundamental issues within the religion is the concept of truth. Now, it's not just, like you said, not just within our religion, but in wider society. Of course, the social commentator, psychoanalyst, a lot of people know Jordan Peterson. He said something very interesting. He said the most important virtue in life is truthfulness. Not, for example, kindness, for example. You know, like you might have a dictator or an oppressor who's kind, but through manipulation, they're kind. You know, that just goes to show that you may not be truthful despite being kind.
Use it to your own benefit.
Yeah, exactly. Again, there's so many examples in history of people like that. But being truthful, sometimes it's hard to swallow. Sometimes it's hard to put forward, but it's important.
It is. And being truthful is very important, because I think it plays in every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
At work, at home, in your community, even with yourself. I mean, you have to be truthful to yourself, because a lot of people, they tell a lot of lies. When you believe your own lie, then I think you just get lost in your own bubble where it becomes some sort of disease. So inshallah, we will all try our best. Not just me, not just you. Inshallah, everyone listening to this podcast, we will always stand by the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I know many people have heard this in lots of dramas, probably on US court sessions or something. But it's something that when we said we want to talk about the truth today, is the first thing that hit my mind. That even someone that say doesn't abide by God's law, his country's law, even those who don't have God abide by the truth. They know the value by speaking the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Truth is within our fitra. Like we innately as human beings, we strive for truth. We have a hunger for truth. For example, the concept of curiosity, if you think about what is curiosity, it's when you have the yearning to learn the true answer or meaning of something. Like you have an innate striving towards the truth. And, you know, for example, young children sometimes are what's the word I'm looking for? Are not discreet at all. They're so blatant and direct. They're innocent and they're truthful. For example, I heard again in another session, the speaker said, for example, someone rings the doorbell. He says, "Is your dad home?" And the kid says, "Yeah, he's home, but he told me to tell you he's not here." Do you know what I mean? Because kids are innocent. This is how they are.
Yeah. You know, I've heard something similar where so I was in a lecture.
Yeah.
And the scholar was saying, you know, he was talking to the parents, because, you know, it's mainly the elders sitting down, an Arabic lecture, shall we say. And he was like, "You guys are always telling your kids, Baba, speak the truth. Don't lie to me." When he grew up knowing, you have been teaching him how to lie unknowingly. The simple thing is, his friends call him on the phone, and he doesn't want to talk. He says, "Baba, tell him I'm in the shower." Or, "Baba, tell him, Baba, I'm asleep." He's automatically, psychologically being programmed to make lying normal. So I think if you're true with yourself, you wouldn't affect society.
Sometimes we don't even realize it like that. You know, we think it's a small thing. I'll call him back later.
We see it like a white lie.
Like a white lie. Even at work, I was thinking about this today. I called up a customer. This is like a true story. I called up a customer today. I was like, "Can I speak to XYZ person?" And they said, "Yeah, just give me 1 second." Put me on hold. A minute later, came back, said, "They're in a meeting. Can you call back later?" So I'm thinking, like, is that true or not? Because sometimes it happens in my office. You know, some of my colleagues will do that or whatever, and it makes you wonder. And you think, oh, it's not a big deal. Like, you're not hugely offended if you're on the receiving end of it, but like you said, like small pebbles of lying amounts to, at the end of the day, you know, tons and tons worth of sin.
They are.
And you know, when we're young, we always hear that concept that if you have a blank page and you put 1,000 black dots. You know, it's worse and harder to erase those black dots than one big, large spot, for example.
It is.
Do you see what I mean?
And as parents, and I know you're also a new parent, may Allah bless your son, it's important that we instill truth in them.
Yeah.
In every sense. Yani for example, even the way we deal with our spouses, for example, when we take them out. You know, sometimes we want to take a holiday off for Ashura.
Yeah.
Lots of parents, what did they tell their school? Just say you felt sick.
Yeah.
No, just say the truth. You know, it's an Islamic occasion, and that we want to mark our respect for the grandson of Rasulullah. This automatically, the kids thinking, okay, he's speaking the truth.
Yeah.
Because I remember back in the day when I was young, all the parents used to say, "Oh, everyone is sick." So all the Shias are missing from school.
Everyone named Ali, Hassan, Hussein doesn't come to school.
Yeah, you just got to say the truth. And sometimes as parents, I say parents because I'm a new parent as well for quite some years. I know eventually there's going to be time where, for example, there's going to be music lessons.
Yeah.
Or there's going to be time where there's certain lessons we don't our kids. We shouldn't come up with excuses. We should say the truth so our kids know why they shouldn't be in such places or environments.
Such a good point. It's very important. And of course, in long term, they will, inshallah, understand.
Inshallah.
And they'll implement that, and that will be ingrained in them. Sayed, something I wanted to get into. You mentioned earlier something about being careful how you speak. And it's important, for example, in the community nowadays with things like gossip, okay? Because gossip is such a huge disease within our community. Rumors, sometimes we don't know where they start. Sometimes we don't know when they're going to end or where they're going to end. But gossip is something which unfortunately has consumed us, and we may not even know it. We may be thinking, I'm speaking facts, I'm warning my brother about someone else, for example. But we don't know if that's gossip or not. How do you think, for example, we should react if news about something or someone comes to us? Like, what do you tell the person who's told you a piece of gossip, and then like, how do you use that information?
Yeah, I don't have much personal experience to share, if I'm honest. I have been in gatherings where people have unfortunately spoken about others, but we haven't been there to gossip. There's one thing I think I have learned from the conversations I've been in and from, you know, the brothers I've surrounded myself with, is that they always remind us, are you sure you saw this? Are you sure you heard this? I think it was Imam Ali, Amir al-Mu'mineen, where he said, the truth is the distance of your four fingers between your eyes and your ears. Was Imam Hassan? I'm not sure. But one of the holy Imams. And that always has stuck with me. Yeah. Honest to God. And because, as I said earlier in the podcast, I was like in a similar environment in the last few days. And that was the first thing that I told that person. If it's not true, you don't know if it's not true. Yeah. You don't know if it's true. You don't know if they're lying. You don't know if you're lying. Maybe you're lying to yourself. Maybe you think it's true. Maybe you didn't see it in the end. It wasn't true at all. Yeah. Because they haven't seen or heard it with their own eyes. Someone told them. And it's like Chinese whispers, you know, ghiba sessions. The Chinese whispers.
It happens too often. And of course, it's so important for us to understand that being truthful in Islam is something which is ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Surah Al-Tawbah, I believe it was, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, اتقوا الله وأكونوا مع صادقين. Be pious and be amongst the Sadiqeen. You know, the Sadiqeen, we talk about sidq, which is the concept of truth, right? And Sadiq or Siddiq is the one who is truthful. You know, last week we talked about the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as being a Sadiq and being truthful in the way he approached people. And we know, of course, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, Nabi Musa, Bibi Maryam alayhi salam, Sayyidah Fatima Zahra salamullahi alayha, were all known as Siddiq or Siddiqa, as a feminine, of course. And these characters were truthful, and not just truthful in how they spoke. They thought the truth. They breathed the truth. They embraced the truth. They consumed everything about them, you know, exuberated the truth. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And that in Islam, telling the truth, like we said, is just a small part of it. You know, but being one who follows al-haq is something which is so important for us that it should become our ultimate goal. Every single morning we should wake up, redefine our goals for the day. Understand that how am I going to go about my day to find the ultimate truth? Because at the end of the day, we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a short amount of time on this earth, and this is the defining moment for our akhirah. So we have to find the truth in our life. And in order to do that, we have to use rationale. And our rationale will tell us that day to day, when we wake up and we go about our day, is this action I'm about to dive into, will this bring me closer to Allah? Will this allow me to become more at one with haqq and truth? I think that for us should be like a compass. We should be able to, you know what I mean?
No, you're very right. And it's very, very beautifully, you mentioned very earlier on, you mentioned that just the other day we spoke about Al-Sadiq Al-Amin Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And as Muslims, we should take him as an example of and become like a definition of Sadiq Al-Amin. In our day-to-day lives, we can go to work. And we can be lying, cheating, you know. For example, if I'm a merchant or I'm a seller, I don't know if anyone's listening has worked in sales, but I think 99% of the time someone who calls me is just talking nonsense. There's no such thing.
Very easy to do.
And that's all lie. So you have to imagine that if you're going to make a sale from that, for example, at work, you've made that sale based on lie, and the commission you're taking home is not halal. It's not halal, let's be honest. It's made out of false information. And another thing is, that I think is very important, is, hope the wife ain't listening, but for example, you have to be very truthful with your spouse at home. That's another example. For example, a lot of the misses, you know, where are you? I'm 5 minutes. It's been 25 minutes, you're in the car. You call again, I'm wearing my shoes. She's still putting the hijab on. These sort of things, I think, inshallah, doesn't become normal. Just be truthful. You don't drive a helicopter or a plane. You know? Say, I'll be there in half an hour, for example. Even us between friends, I could say, I'm on my way here to the podcast. And I normally don't say I've left till I've actually got in the car.
MashaAllah, you did this to me today. Said Ali, for those who don't know, he was a perfect example. He said, I'm going to be late, I'm running late, I'm going to be there 8:15. And MashaAllah, at 8:15 you turned up.
Alhamdulillah.
I expected that and I knew that was coming. But that's what we need to do. You know?
And another thing that's important, non-Muslims are watching us. They don't know who Rasulullah is. They probably haven't read the Noble Quran. So they're seeing me, you, and those watching, listening. You are the Muslims. You are representing Al-Sadiq Al-Amin. So we have to try to live like that.
We're personifications of our religion, representatives, whether we like it or not. You mentioned haram money, which I found quite interesting. It's very easy for us to fall into that trap. It's very easy for us to earn haram living without realizing it. Now, if someone, for example, is lying in order to make a sale, maybe that tells us that that person fears the reaction or the impression someone else will have of them, as opposed to the reaction or impression Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have on us. So, for example, if I am lying to make a sale, or I'm lying to not give off a bad reputation or something, it means I fear what that person will think of me more than what Allah thinks of me. Do you see what I mean? You're worried about the consequences in this world, which of course we should be concerned about the consequences in this world, but we're thinking about that above what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may think of us. And it's important for us to understand this, because if we are lying, if we think, well, what is the reason for someone to lie? Okay, or not even just lying, but also lying to themselves, not following haqq, not following truthhood. Why do people do that? It's because they are either more concerned about the worldly affairs, what people think, how much money they earn,
Yes.
what people say,
Yes.
or they have a greed. They want to have a greed for power. You know, I think, oh, I can change someone's opinion. I don't have to tell them the truth. I can tell them what I want. They're gonna believe what I say. There's an element of fake impression of power that you get from lying. And you know, for example, why lie detectors are so successful. It's because innately as human beings, we're not built or wired to lie. So your natural, the pulses and all these, the electrics inside your brain and all of that stuff, I'm not really scientific, but that will give off a signal that you're lying because it's not innate. But the more someone lies, the more accustomed they are to lying and the less reaction they have inside. Do you see what I mean?
Interesting. It's sort of, I'm not saying it proves anything, but I'm saying it might prove that there are satanic whispers if we're not programmed to lie.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But why is it, Sayed, that you think people have a tendency to lie? But you know, Sayed, a lot of people are asking us, especially nowadays on social media and everything, what is Taqiyah? You Shia are always doing Taqiyah.
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
Well, we Shias are not always doing taqiyya. We are always speaking the truth and we are saying haqq. But taqiyya is not me or some random Shia scholar coming out saying you can come out and lie. No, the Quran is saying that you can come and conceal the truth in a particular situation.
Like what?
I'm going to quote the verse for you.
Okay.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm going to translate it here. Chapter 16, verse 106. He who disbelieves in Allah after his belief in Him is the liar, except he who is compelled while his heart remains steadfast with the faith. Allah didn't say lie. He said those who believe in Allah and then disbelieve, they're the liars. But those who conceal when they are compelled, Allah knows what's in their heart. Okay. So this is concealing something. But you know, a lot of people say we use taqiyya 24/7. You Shias are using it left, right and center, but we only use it in specific circumstances, Ahmed.
So let me ask you a legitimate question.
Bismillah.
Have you ever been in a position in your life where you've had to do taqiyya?
No.
Okay, and I haven't either. And the only instance I think either of us would be in that situation is if a gun was to our head or to the head of a loved one or something, astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu alayh, and we are asked a question about us or our beliefs or something, and in order to keep the protection of our family or ourselves remaining, we have to do taqiyya. And that is not only accepted by the Shia scholars. That's because obviously a lot of people won't agree with that or accept that.
No, the Quran is for all.
The Quran is for all, Baba. It's not just the Quran, it's the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, his daughter Fatima Zahra, his brother in every sense of the word, Amir al-Mu'mineen. These are the talking examples of the Holy Quran. You know, and they themselves have endorsed it, and they've said that in circumstances, situations, you must do this.
Yeah, you're right. And you know, I actually pictured myself in what's because you asked, have you ever been? Alhamdulillah, I haven't.
Yeah.
But I pictured myself, if that was ever to happen, it'll probably be somewhere in Mosul with ISIS having a sword to my neck or something.
And to be fair, even in that situation, you don't want to do it.
You shouldn't.
You shouldn't want to do it because you are proud of.
But this is what Allah's allowing you to conceal, not lie. Let's clarify, not lie. To conceal your faith. He knows what's in your heart. But if it's going to preserve your life and stop severe harm, there's no wrong in doing so.
Absolutely. And I just want to make this absolutely clear.
I'm not a scholar, by the way.
Neither of us are scholars. But not just that, on a level, brothers and sisters, do not accuse people of kufr or taqiyya or things like that if you don't know.
Seriously,
like, please look it up. You have access. You have no excuse nowadays. We live in the 21st century. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you 2 eyes for a reason and 1 mouth. And the reason is that you can look up and you can research and you can learn and you can listen with your 2 ears and you have 1 mouth to make accusations with. And there's a reason for that, brothers and sisters. Like Sayyid, you mentioned earlier about the 4 fingers hadith.
Yeah.
It's evident there for us in a hadith that, you know, you cannot make accusations towards anyone for anything unless it's validated and you know, there's a rationale behind it. But not just taqiyya, Sayyid. Also white lies, of course, that's like a big thing. Yeah,
so you know, white lies, if I can just clarify, a white lie is a lie, but it's just a white lie. So who defines the colors between black and white?
I'm so baffled.
So that's how difficult it is to make someone understand. So the best way the scholars have made us understand where you are sort of allowed
Yeah.
to not say the whole truth.
Yeah.
For example, I'm going to give another marriage example here. And it's, for example, your wife has cooked you some food.
Okay.
Okay? You don't like it, but she asked you, how's my cooking? You know, say, you know what? It's amazing. It's great. She's going to be happy. You're happy. You haven't upset her. That's like where the line is. Yes.
Yeah. To keep things in harmony. And in the same example, of course, we know in Islam, in circumstances where you have 100% conviction and hukum that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would prefer you to say something to keep things intact as opposed to saying the truth, as one may call it, which causes friction. Like
that's why I said not the whole truth. You know, it's still truthful.
Like, for example, I had an example from a teacher. He said, in the case of divorce, you may have, for example, a husband and wife due to get divorced and you are the middleman, for example. You can say to the husband, your wife loves you very much. And
to reconcile,
to reconcile them, of course. And that's an important element for us to understand, that and we have to make this clear, does not mean you can justify any sin in the world and say, it's all right, I can lie about it because it's better than the alternative. No, there's no reasoning for that.
Ahsant.
There's also an incident in the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Listen to this. This is a really nice story.
My ears is open.
A man comes to the mosque and he sees Imam Ali sitting and he says, Ya Imam, I'm being chased. People are trying to kill me. This is a mu'min from the community of Amir al-Mu'mineen. So the Imam says, don't worry, I've got your back. I'm paraphrasing. The man says, okay. He goes and hides. The people come in and the Imam stands up and he sits somewhere else. Okay? The people come to the Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says, have you seen this guy we're looking for? Amir al-Mu'mineen says, whilst I've been sitting here, I haven't seen him. What Amir al-Mu'mineen is doing is tawriyah, which of course we know is not lying, but giving an alternative truth which one may use in a circumstance to protect, or for example to avoid risk of harm, for example. This again is very, very discouraged unless it's a certain circumstance. And if only Amir al-Mu'mineen did it, and we know like these are rare occasions in the life of the Emir where they did it, rare occasions. And that's a time where there's volatility and aggression and war and all sorts. Even then, they rarely did it.
And this was to preserve life.
It was to preserve
protect life as well, and you know, because you know, like we have, I know Abu Dharr al-Ghafari has narrated Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He has said, "Speak the truth, even if it's bitter." Yani to an extent that we have to lie to make something sound so sweet. But here, the biggest proof of Allah on earth is asking you to speak the truth, even though it's bitter. But circumstances like this to protect life is where we learn from the Ahlul Bayt. And it's, I think, also falls under the category of Taqiyah.
It's interesting also nowadays, to get someone to believe you, you have to say Wallah, or Wallahi, or however you say it, or Qasam.
Abbas Abu Fadl.
Honestly, Bil Abbas, or is it Wil Abbas or Bil Abbas?
It's up to you.
Yeah, you can say
Bil Abbas.
Bil Abbas. Okay. So I mean, this is so common nowadays. Like, I don't know why, and even myself, and I'm so sure many of the listeners as well are affected by this.
It is, and I think I was speaking to you a bit earlier. And I was like, you know, sometimes we can hear someone, he mentions the word God 50 times in a sentence. Yani the sentence has 5 words. Wallah, I went there. Wallah, I saw this. And Wallah, you can't believe what happened. The amount of times Wallah has been spoken, you know, it's absolute lie. There's no doubt about it.
Wallah. Like you'll go on and on and on. This is not good, brother. Sister, we gotta remember. Like, this
I'm laughing about this, but lying, putting the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your lie, I think is like...
We know the Holy Quran says, last month it says, do not take the name of your Lord in vain. Yani what? Like, you can't just use the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so lightly. Do you see what I mean? It's not. You can't use the name of God in play or in sport. Like, you know, you can't use it for your own entertainment. But I think that's a culture thing, isn't it? Like, we grow up and some communities do it a lot.
They do. And I think it mostly happens in gossip circles.
Yeah.
And if you're not near the gossip, you're not going to hear lies. But if you're always lying yourself, you're going to be attracted to these gossip circles.
And people do it when they're in arguments to try and back themselves.
Yes.
They do it to preserve their own reputation. If it's got to the point...
They don't mind destroying someone else's reputation to save theirs.
Yeah. And if it's got to the point, Said, where if you have to say Wallah for someone else to believe you, then the chances are that you know yourself that you're not a believable person. Do you see what I mean? But if you have to prove that you're telling the truth by using the word of Allah, the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a chance that you are not a believable person. That you know people won't believe you. And why is that? Do you give off qualities? What is it about you that's not believable? Why do you have to use the name of God in vain to make someone else believe you?
And I think a lot of people forget lying is a sin. It's haram. Yani there's no black and white to it. It's haram. You know, taqiyya is concealing, it's not lying. Okay? But lying in any case is haram, and it's actually included in the major sins.
Yeah.
And I've even read, and it said, for example, at the time of someone, as they're lying, they have left Islam. The moment they've stopped lying, they come back as Muslims. That's how much they have told us, the Ahlul Bayt, to stay away from lying. So, yani, for someone that, for example, keeps saying wallah in every sentence, or for someone that would rather lie to destroy someone's reputation to make sure they look like angels, it's a disease. It's a disease. And it's not something that someone comes up with every day. And they're not intentionally saying, I'm going to lie now. It becomes automatic. That means they've been lying their entire life. It's not easy for someone to come out and say, I saw X do this, they did that. It's not easy. And I'll leave it there.
There's so many, just to kind of maybe close. There's so many examples in the life of the life of the Aimma alayhi salam, where haqq is the number one priority. You know, when we talk about Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, we usually use some cliche terms: social justice warrior, stood for justice against oppression, yada yada. To be really honest, that's like a secondary quality.
That's to make everyone understand.
Yeah, it's a very globalistic approach to understanding the Imam. The reality is Imam Hussein alayhi salam stood for haqq. He stood against batil. And that's fundamentally what he did. He stood for the religion of Islam, the religion of his grandfather, to preserve the religion that was initially brought by his grandfather. And that is the ultimate
goal.
And that is, you know, he's working towards absolute truth, and that absolute truth is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So inshallah we can try and, you know, not only implement that, but in terms of how we speak, but also in the way we approach our lives, you know.
And I'm going to share something with the listeners of the podcast. You know, I was speaking to Ahmed earlier on, and we were speaking about this subject as well, about telling the truth and everything. And Ahmed told me something. Oh, let me talk to them directly. Ahmed told me something that for you to always say the truth, you have to always put haqq first.
Did I say that?
You did. Am I giving you any memories here? Or?
I don't remember.
Oh God, I was hoping you can tell the listeners about it.
For you to always say the truth, you have to say haqq first.
You need to believe in haqq.
Yeah,
you have to put haqq as number one for you to be truthful.
Yeah, of course. So how can we embrace truth in our core? How can we live our lives on the path of Sirat al-Mustaqim if we haven't understood haqq? And if we're not striving for haqq, like I'm lying to myself. Yani I can go out and portray an image. I'm a religious guy. I pray. I recite at the mosque.
We have many of those.
I speak on a podcast, for example.
Yes, myself included.
Ourselves, and at home, for example, we're not doing a justice to ourselves, to our families. You know, we are lying to ourselves. If we're not truthful to ourselves, we won't get anywhere. We're living in a facade. The last thing I'll say is, batil, whatever's considered batil, is an illusion. And Islam akins batil to like bubbles on water. That is, it's an illusion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, He compares Himself with the idols. He says, how am I different to the idols? Allah says that I am the haqq, the absolute haqq, and the idols are batil. They're void, they're unapparent, they will disappear, they're an illusion. Everything which is falsehood in Islam is an illusion. And we have to remember that, because if we're listening to music, or we're looking at girls or the opposite gender or whatever it is, or we're lying to our co-workers, or we're lying to our wife or husband or our parents or whatever it is, we're not going to get away with it.
Lying on our job applications.
Even the small things we consider.
It's easy for us, but it's a lie.
Even things we consider to be small are lies. So we're not going to get anywhere in life. Allah is not, astaghfirullah, He's not unaware of what we do. He knows everything.
He is listening and watching to everything we do. And that's why I think it becomes easy to lie. We sort of forget Allah's there. If we put Him everywhere we go, that's where He is, let's be honest. He's everywhere. If we can always remember Allah is always watching over us, I don't think it becomes easy to lie.
Absolutely. Say
you'll be held accountable.
Any last comments?
Any last comments? I would say to everyone listening, stick with the truth and not falsehood. Aliyu ma'al haqq wal haqqu ma'a Ali. Ali is with the truth and the truth is with Ali.
MashaAllah. I love it. MashaAllah. Brothers and sisters, if you haven't already, like I said, please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, Please, we want you to watch the podcast when it comes out every Thursday, inshallah. And not just that, let us know what you think in the comments below. How do you feel about this topic? Have you got any experiences, any lessons you've learned in your life which might help us to learn more? And lastly, as always, let us know your feedback. Leave us a like. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.